Hi, First Baptist family and friends. I'm Shelby Myers. You might recognize me as one who leads worship at First Baptist, and you'd be right. I am the Awakening Praise Brand Director and a member of the First Baptist community. But what you might not know is that I am also a therapist at the Marriage and Family Counseling Center here in Columbia. So, being that I don't have my guitar on hand with me today, and as part of the Wisdom for Pandemic Living series, I want to speak to you from my experience as a therapist. Now, what comes next may not be easy for you, and I want to say that that's okay. I'd like to talk about addiction. Now, some of you may have just gone wide-eyed and wondered what in the world you have walked into. Understandably, I know this isn't an easy topic. In fact, it is still a source of misunderstanding and misinformation among many. It might be personal for you, a potential source of pain. Whether you have a personal experience with addiction, know someone who has, or maybe you know nothing about it at all, I hope that by the end of this video you will gain a new understanding of what addiction is, what it's like to have one, and how it relates to COVID-19. So, let's talk shop. There has been an onslaught of new research on the topic of addiction in the last 10 years. So based on brain scan research, we now know so much more about addiction, including new terms. So a clinical term, or the term I would use for an addiction, is a substance use disorder. The substance can range from anything from alcohol to illegal or legal drugs, even prescription drugs, to food, among others. But perhaps the biggest development is that no matter the substance, we now understand addiction to be a brain disease. Yep, you heard me correctly, brain disease. So why do we call it that? Well, based on research, we know that brain chemistry, neurotransmitters, and synapse functioning are impacted when addiction to a substance. So when a substance is introduced to the brain, it can cause the body to stop producing certain neurotransmitters. That is the fancy word for the chemicals that thoughts travel on through the brain. When this happens, it causes an imbalance. This creates the drive, the need, or what is commonly called a craving for that substance. Why? Well, because you don't feel normal, you don't feel good without it. So this goes beyond that common conception of the high that you get when you use a drug. This is to the point of needing that substance for basic functioning. So the brain and the body then become single-minded, in a sense, to have that substance. This is addiction. It is not a myth. It is a physical and mental living hell that burns away every area of life from which one cannot simply walk away. Addiction is often described by a behavior an individual with addiction displays. And so while I'm not dismissing behaviors or their impact, it is important to keep in mind that they are often a byproduct of the brain disease that is treatable. Addiction does not discriminate. It does not just impact stereotypes of people like the homeless or veterans or those with low socioeconomic status. Addiction can impact anyone. We now know that there's a genetic predisposition to developing an addiction. So if there's a family history of addiction, you are potentially at a higher risk of developing an addiction yourself. So what does any of this have to do with the pandemic? Well, good question. My experience so far in meeting with clients during this time is that whatever existed before the pandemic has been accelerated by it. So what may have been manageable before may not be now. Research is showing that substance use has risen during the pandemic, which would make sense to me because what was manageable before is taking more to be manageable now. So we know that stress, anxiety, depression are rising along with substance use. And with all of that can come an onslaught of emotions. Stress, anxiety, and depression impact our minds, our bodies, and our spirits, which can present in how we feel. So, one key factor in making manageable what we may feel is out of control is understanding and regulating what we feel. I would call this emotion regulation. It sounds much smaller than it actually is, and in reality, most of life is about managing our emotions. So, what does this look like? Well, here's a good place to start. Develop an understanding of what you are feeling and put a name on it. If you need help with names, I encourage you to use a feelings wheel. Here's one. You can click on the link in the comments below and pull one up for yourself. I would encourage you to save it to your phone and pull it up when you need it, or print one out and put it in a common area in your house where you know you can find it when you need it. It can provide immense vocabulary for your emotions. All right, next step. Sit with your feelings. I know, it sounds cheesy, but just stick with me. It might help you to think of your emotions as part of you that are like messages from a good friend trying to help you navigate life. Do your best to turn toward what you're feeling and ask good questions like, why am I feeling this way? What do I need right now? What do I need to do about what I'm feeling? Third step, determine how to act for what you are feeling, not from it. This is a key concept. There's a big difference between being flooded and controlled by what you feel and being able to acknowledge and validate what you feel and act for it. Do you feel the difference? One is powerless, the other is powerful. To be able to manage what has become unmanageable, the first step is to take back your power to choose how to respond to what you are feeling. Using a substance to drown out or change what you feel is a short-term solution that is not productive and may lead to long-term consequences. So, if you are finding that a substance is impacting your time, relationships, ability to work, or your overall sense of well-being, talking to a mental health professional is a must. There is help. If you don't know who to talk to, you can talk to the pastors at First Baptist for a referral, or you can call the Marriage and Family Counseling Center and we will get you connected to a professional that's right for you. Also, something that is often left out of the conversation about addiction is the impact it has on families. If you have a loved one that is struggling with an addiction, there is help for you and your family, as well as for your loved one. Don't think that help is only for those who have an addiction. Addiction can rock and unravel a family. If you or your family need help, reach out. There is help, and there is hope.